Well, emergency officials are on high alert in the Vaal following flooding in the area. Residents have also been evacuated as several houses are submerged. The gushing water has also caused extensive damage to property, roads and critical infrastructure. Yesterday, the Department of Water and Sanitation opened 2 gates at the Vaal Dam, in addition to the 10 that were already opened on Friday. They're warning farmers and residents along the Vaal and Orange rivers of the possibility of flooding. Well, Newzroom Afrika's Katleho Sekhoto is in the Vaal Dam and she joins us live now. Katleho, can you tell us what exactly we're looking at here?
Well, Ntokozo, we are looking at the Vaal Dam wall here, where, as you correctly mentioned, 2 sluice gates were opened yesterday at around 9 a.m., bringing the total number of gates opened at the dam to 12. So that means there's quite a lot of pressure on the dam due to the recent heavy rains and flooding. So the Water and Sanitation Department explains that people really had to be evacuated. Those who were living or informal dwellers living near the riverbanks had to be evacuated yesterday, and also people living in surrounding areas due to the rising levels. What we know is that this dam stream to Blomhof in the Free State right up until the Northern Cape. We're seeing here at the Vaal Dam could actually happen in the dams along this river. So the river is a natural flowing thing, and the dams are man-made catchments, if you will, or containers in which human beings have created the dam in order to supply water to communities and to municipalities, if you will. So when we have flooding or heavy rains like we've seen now, and officials having to open these gates to release the pressure, there has to be this mass movement to make sure that people aren't near where the water levels are high and to ensure the safety of people essentially. So the Water and Sanitation Department was explaining that we have these containers, if you will, the dams along the Vaal River system leading right up to the Northern Cape. So if you have this persistent rain, if it continues, what we might see is people being evacuated as well in those communities along the Vaal River. So what was also explained to me by the Water and Sanitation Department is that in the Northern Cape, we see the convergence of 2 rivers. That's where 2 rivers meet. That's the Orange River from the Free State as well as the Vaal River, which starts in Mpumalanga, typically speaking. So what you might see then, if the rains persist and we have dams being blocked or having to be the sluice gates opened at the different stations along the river, then we might see this convergence there, even in the Northern Cape, affecting that province as well if the rains persist. So we might actually see in the coming weeks the Northern Cape even getting alerts where areas have to be evacuated. And that's actually some of the issues which communities might have to deal with in the coming weeks due to the heavy rains that we're experiencing.
Well, Katleho, talking about those communities and some of the sort of compounding effects that they'll have to deal with, let's talk to Nico Zietzman, whose house and car has in fact been submerged with regards, I suppose, as a result of the flooding that we're seeing. Nico, thank you so much for joining us on our program this morning. Very quickly, Nico, how much of a warning were you actually given before the sluice gates were opened?
Yeah, good morning. Warnings actually only came like in the morning time. By the time I got to the property, it was really rising very quickly. And within half an hour, water rose up almost by a meter. I was busy evacuating the house and getting things to higher ground. By the time I turned my back, my car was completely submerged. I couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
So we were rescued by the police water wing by yesterday afternoon, 4 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean, you sound completely devastated and almost still at shock with how events have unfolded. But I know that you and several other community members obviously had to evacuate from your homes, remove your personal belongings rather. You mentioned your cars, but I know that there are also businesses situated in the same area. Talk to us about how you managed that. You mentioned that you needed the aid of police officials at some point.
Yes, that's correct. Like I said, we're basically on a farm, which is a large community, and everybody had to be rescued yesterday. That was still available that was able to get out there quick enough. Some of us were still stuck in there, surrounded by water completely, like 360 degrees of water all around us. We couldn't get out. And yeah, everybody's been affected on our community. It's very devastating.
Yeah, suffice to say that our warning that you were given was simply not enough, Nico. I wonder if you have any livestock on your property and whether or not you managed to remove those animals in time as well, given the challenges really of having to, move livestock from one point to another.
Yeah, the police was in great assistance with us. They did an enormous job. Everybody that's on the farm, the community, has been successfully evacuated, and as far as I know, all animals as well.
All right. Are you able at this point at all, Nico? I know that you're really kind of going through it right now, but are you able at all to quantify for us, the damages that you've incurred? When you look at the devastation around you, are you able to perhaps give us an estimate figure of what you're thinking will cost in terms of recovering from this damage?
It's lots. I mean, we've lost everything. We are around about 162 families on this community property, and we've all suffered. So we're talking millions.
All right. Well, Nico, thank you so much for coming onto our platform this morning and of course, sharing with us this devastating story. We take you back live now to our reporter, Katlaho Sohoto, who, as we mentioned earlier, is at the Vaal Dam. Katlaho, we just heard from Nico, who is completely devastated, is still reeling, really, from the effects of the flooding, talking about completely being surrounded by water, a 360 view of water, homes, houses, livestock submerged underwater, but very importantly, mentioning to us that they only received an hour's warning from local officials, from government officials. What has the Department of Water and Sanitation said about the amount of time they've given to residents to effect these evacuations?
Well, yes, Ntogos, I mean, that question is quite important in the sense that the Department of Water and Sanitation has its mandate, which is to capture water. But I had a conversation with the department around things like, this evacuation. Was it properly communicated? Was it communicated in time? And one of the issues is that there's a line or a chain of communication. So you have what we have is the Water and Sanitation Department, which then gives the mandate to utilities like Rand Water to supply people with the water. And then Rand Water then is, so then the municipalities are actually the customer of an entity like Rand Water. So it's actually up to the municipality to communicate. So what we see is the department saying, look, we're responsible for the catchment of raw water. Then you have a utility like Rand Water, which we have installed, to say, okay, Rand Water, you supply infrastructure, pipes, and the things that are needed to supply water to municipalities. Then municipalities have the mandate to then communicate with communities. And it seems that perhaps there was a breakdown in communication from the municipality to residents. But you can question as well that it could have been any one of those, that chain of communication or that chain of governance, which could have communicated with people. So, it's a very valid question as to why were people only evacuated yesterday when by yesterday we had 12 sluice gates opened. So it is a question that really needs to be answered by government across the board.
Indeed. Katlego, thank you so much. We'll leave that particular story there for now, but quite clear for our viewers to see the devastation that has been wreaked on the lives of those communities living alongside those embankments, having not been given enough time, enough of a warning really, to move out of the way of danger. Well, let's take a look at this particular